we
your
set
household.
up, and now I'm living with somebody else, and their stuff's here. And
Right. It's double
just
the work.
a lot.
Yeah,
it's double the work, man. Yeah.
It's
And it's getting there. I got maybe another few more days of work that I can get this place starting to look more like a house,
right,
a place to live in. But it was your birthday. That's more important.
It was
your birthday.
Yeah. Normally we record on Mondays, but this year my birthday fell on a Monday, June 17th. So now for all of you at home, we're recording on June 18th, and yeah, it was my birthday yesterday. It was my 32nd birthday, so I'm well past the 30-year mark. Steven and I are both in the 30 and over club now.
Yes.
And it's a weird feeling. When you're younger, you never can quite envision yourself, past a certain age. And now that you've gotten there, you're like, this is it. This is like, it looked so much cooler when you were a kid. Now, like, being 30 and over is not as special as it was back then. But yeah, by this point, for me, it's not a huge celebration. It's more of just like, oh, made it another year, yay!
Yeah, I know, right?
just making it through every year out. It's like, damn,
another year closer to my death.
I guess for all the skeptics out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the middle of June. I've always liked my birthday when I was younger because it coincided with the end of the school year. So my birthday would be like right after school or right around when school would end. When you're in elementary and middle school, high school, and college ended much earlier, which was really, really nice. But but I always kind of associated it with summer. And summer, has always been my favorite time of year. The weather's nicer. Things just seem a little more happier this time of year. Yeah. I don't know. That's just me. Maybe because I don't have any children. You know what I mean?
That's that always helps, I think, a little bit.
I think that always helps. I'm also, I'm single and I have no children, so I guess I don't have any type of responsibility burdens that some other people may have during the summertime. But before we get into our main topic, which is coincidentally talking about summer and summer movies and things like that, a couple of things we want to talk about when it comes to something we all know and love, at least Steven and I do, and that is Criterion Collection. Criterion Collection, coincidentally, speaking of my birthday, they had their September announcements on Monday, the 17th, and they put up quite a few interesting releases. A few interesting releases that some I'm not aware of, some I'm very aware of. But yeah, first up here is a film called Local Hero, which is a film I've never seen. These are all Blu-ray releases, I think, all for the first time. This is a film I'm not aware of. The next one is Charlie Chaplin's The Circus, which I have seen. It's one of his early feature films from the 1920s. I think it predates
The Kid.
Yeah, I think or maybe it's the one he did right after The Kid, but it predates Modern Times, I believe. And yeah, I'm definitely excited to get more Chaplin in the collection because they haven't released a Chaplin collection. I think a Chaplin movie into the collections, I think, since The Kid.
Yeah.
And that was
it's been like 2 years, yeah.
At least. And next one, which is the biggest one, it's the one that everyone's talking about, buzzing about, everyone posted about, and that is John Waters' film Polyester, starring Tab Hunter and Divine. And yeah, I'm really excited for this because I don't own it. It's the first time it's going to be on Blu-ray, and there's just for years now, since Multiple Maniac has come out, since Female Trouble has come out, we're like, oh, what's the next John Waters film to be released by Criterion? And it's Polyester. I guess a lot of people at home are hoping for Pink Flamingos, but I guess they're just moving right along to Polyester, which I think follows up Female Trouble. It's the film that came out after that. And for those of you not familiar, John Waters is a favorite of mine. I mentioned him many times on here, and I'm just trying to get all of his movies because they've been available on DVD for years, but I think some of his stuff, especially his early stuff, is now going on to print. Don't quote me on that, but some of his other more mainstreamy stuff or stuff that's more well-known have already gotten Blu-ray releases from other companies. I know Crybaby's gotten a release, Hairspray's gotten a release, Serial Mom just got a release, I think, from Shout Factory. So those have gotten releases.
John Waters from my neck of the woods, Baltimore, Maryland.
He is from Baltimore, Maryland. That's where he lives pretty much year-round, except for during the summertime. I know he has a home at Cape Cod, which is in my neck of the woods, like 2 hours away. He's here all the time, apparently, during the summer, because they have the Provincetown Film Festival every single summer. Coincidentally, it's always around my birthday. So one year I definitely want to go there for my birthday, but it's a hot vacation spot during the summer, Cape Cod and that area, so it's tough to get to. But moving on to the next movie, which is Clooney Brown, which is directed by Ernst Lubitsch, is a film I've also seen as well. And it's also making its Blu-ray debut, and it's a really wonderful kind of comedy romantic film that I think is really, really good. And I think a lot of people are going to be seeing it for the first time because it's not too readily available. Yeah, I think I've seen it on Turner Classic Movies like sometime this year, or maybe it was even on Filmstruck. Actually, I think it was on Filmstruck.
That would make sense.
Yeah, bringing back Filmstruck. I mean, speaking of Criterion, the Criterion channel is going strong right now. They've got lots and lots of movies up on there. And some of the Criterion Collection editions end up on there too, with just the wealth of special features. But the next film is a film called The Cloud-Capped Star, and it's a film that I'm not familiar with. But I'm very, very, of course, interested in seeing what that entails. It's directed by someone I don't even know, Ritwik Gatan, I believe it is. Yeah, Ritwik Gatan. So that's a potential blind buy in the future. And the last one here is Fists in the Pocket by Marco Bellacchio. I think it's Italian. Pretty sure it is. But it's another film I'm not familiar with. But yet again, potential blind buy down the line. So it was a pretty interesting month for September. Unfortunately, as we all know, or at least everyone who collects Criterions, is that the bi-yearly Criterion sale doesn't fall into September. So perhaps those are things people will pick up at the November sale if indeed it does happen. Who knows? Who really knows right now? I mentioned to Steven before we started recording that Barnes & Noble, the company, the entity, just got bought by some private company, I think it was $630 million or something like that. But Barnes & Noble is kind of like the last, mainstream big chain bookstore available in the United States. I mean, there's not really, it's kind of all like small bookshops now and smaller chains and things like that, but Barnes & Noble was, a big one.
It's reverting back to its roots.
Yeah, kind of. Starting, I guess, because it's been struggling. We've all known this for years and years now. It's no secret that physical media in general is waning down, struggling, and that's not only movies, that's also, print stuff as well. Books, newspapers, magazines. I believe Entertainment Weekly, which has been a weekly magazine since its inception in the late 80s, early 90s, somewhere around there, is now switching up to being to not being every week. So that's kind of changing course on the way we consume media and whatnot, and it's really just showing how things are changing, patterns are changing, the way we consume things are changing very much so, and that kind of actually fits into what we're going to be talking about during this episode, because the way movies are consumed, the frequency, the seasons, and all that kind of stuff has changed and evolved over time. But Steven, do you have anything else to say before we perhaps move on to our main topic? Can't get the words out.
The only thing I have to say is that if you've never listened to this before,
yes.
I'm Stephen Billings, and this is Andrew Cabral, and this is the Cinema Discovery Project. Bam, we're bad hosts.
Damn. Damn. That's what happens when you're thrown off your game for a little bit. The things that come natural to you get thrown away.
Yes.
Like we forgot to say it, Cinema Discovery Project. I'm Andrew, you're Steven. Hopefully those of you listening have been listening to us before and this isn't your first time, because we do appreciate repeat listeners as well as first-time listeners. Come one, come all. Come see everything. It doesn't matter.
Please come.
Yeah, just go. We're like Barnum and Bailey or Greatest Showman in here.
We're like...
but we're much nicer and we don't abuse animals. Yeah.
We're like... I would say we're more like Batman and Joker.
I thought you were going to say Batman and Robin.
No, I know. I switched it up on you.
I want to be one of the cool Robins, though. Maybe not Dick Grayson.
You can be Damien.
Yeah, maybe I'll be Damien. Or, I would rather be Jason Todd, but not Jason Todd Robin. Jason Todd as Red Hood. That's what I want to be. Those are comic books. Those are comic books. But,
we're getting off topic.
Speaking of which, I mean, comic book movies have kind of taken over the summer blockbuster trend in the last decade or so.
Oh yeah, and since we're in the middle of we're getting really into the thick of it now.
Yes.
We figured we would talk about the evolution of the summer blockbuster and how it's evolved over the years.
How it has evolved, and coincidentally, I was just talking about Entertainment Weekly, because I've been collecting Entertainment Weekly now for years, and every year they've got their summer movie preview. That's what they have. I'm bringing them back up because I wanted to specifically mention that they're switching from weekly publication to monthly publication. That was the change, and that was the first time change. But yes, speaking of summer movie preview, we did a whole year-long preview early on this year, which we got into all the summer releases and all that kind of stuff. But we, like Steven said, wanted to go back in time, take a trip in the Cinema Discovery machine, back to what I like to call 1975, back before the bicentennial, because that's where our modern perception of the summer blockbuster movie gets its start, where it exists from.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like before then we didn't have summer movies, or they weren't people going to the movies during the summer, because there were.
I mean, there was movies like, Planet of the Apes was a big movie.
Oh, yeah, the Planet of the Apes franchise, all that kind of stuff. I mean, and of course, when we use the term blockbuster, we are referencing, the scale and size of these movies, but it's also the reaction, the way people
phenomenon,
perceive the phenomena of it, the cultural impact of it, and it's not like we also didn't have big movies before 1975. Of course we did. I mean, they were making epics in the 50s and 60s.
James Bond movies.
Yeah, they had action movies back then too. This isn't like a genesis of the action movie. It's just when things changed on a different scale, when things moved from there was a cultural shift, if you will, and it of course starts with Steven Spielberg's Jaws, 1975. This is a huge hit. It's obviously culturally relevant now. It's iconic. Back then, this was kind of a relatively big budgeted movie. It was made for less than $9 million, but there was a big, I think, $1.8 million marketing push for it, which of course is it's a lot of money in the 70s. Nowadays, you can't do anything with less than $10 million.
I mean, that's a Blumhouse movie now.
Yeah, you can't do anything. I mean, those movies are making their rounds in the festival circuit, just trying to get distribution. But back then, that's a big time movie, or not a big time, but it's a relatively big experiment, considering at the time Steven Spielberg was a relative unknown filmmaker. I mean, he was coming off of what, Duel?
Sugarland Express.
Sugarland Express. I mean,
was that before? Didn't he do that one before he did Jaws?
Yeah, let me actually look before we say stuff we're lying.
I could only been Duel, but I for some reason I think he did Sugarland Express first.
I also think he did other stuff.
Or maybe he did it right after.
Let's see.
Jaws.
The one thing about, you have to go all the way back down because they got so many things. Yeah, he had done some short films. He had done a feature in '64 called Firelight. Never seen it. Short TV series, Dual TV movie, and then he did TV movie, Sugarland Express, then Jaws, and then followed it up with Close Encounters, then 1941, and what a lot of people don't like, and of course Raiders, and on and on. But we'll get into those because he's kind of the grandfather, godfather, father, overseer of the summer blockbuster movies. He kind of, that's where he's made his name over his entire career.
Yeah, I would say combination of him and when Star Wars hit the scene, that was...
Those are Jaws and Star Wars are the two films that are the bedrock of the summer blockbuster movie. Because Jaws was a small kind of phenomenon compared to Star Wars, but it was still big. The movie made, I think it was like 400 and something million worldwide, which was big back then, made over 200 million domestically, which of course was big. It's big now. And yeah, it was just massive. And the reason, that's where kind of the summer blockbuster, the term blockbuster gets its name from in this context. Originally the term blockbuster was actually, I think, from World War II, where the bombs that were dropped in places were, blowing things up, so they called them blockbusters. And then of course we also have the term, blockbuster bombs or movie bombs. Movies that don't do well at the movie theater are also kind of referenced as destructive things. It's very weird. The semantics are very weird. But this idea of the blockbuster is that so many people would be lined up around the block that they would, be, blockbusting. Yet again, play on words. It's a play on words.
It's pretty bad. Yeah.
But back in the day, you've probably seen this footage. If anybody who's a Star Wars fan or just a movie fan in general, you see these lines of massive droves of people waiting to get in the multiplexes to see
that don't happen. That don't happen anymore.
That doesn't really happen anymore. Sometimes it does. I mean, nowadays I've had to wait in line to get into movies, not necessarily outside a multiplex, but I've had to wait in line. I had to, as recently as seeing the movie It, from not last year, the year before last. I think it came out. I had to wait in line to see that. Star Wars, you still have to wait in line at theaters to get in. I know that. I've seen people have to wait in line for that. I remember having to wait in line to see Harry Potter when that came out.
I don't think there's patience for that overall
honestly,
though anymore.
It really depends on the movie theater because most mainstream, chain movie theaters you can reserve your seats. But for the ones you can't,
buy in advance. Yeah,
buy in advance. But for the ones you can't, which is seemingly the ones I keep going to, where you have to buy and then stiff arm people on the way to get in the good seats. You have to wait in line to get in because it's not like you buy your ticket, your seat number, you go and sit down like a concert or something like that. But see, my theaters are a little bit behind here than everybody else's. That's the problem.
There's nothing wrong with that, Andrew. There's nothing wrong with that.
I guess there's nothing wrong with that. But moving on to, I guess, more contextual stuff about the times, I guess just culturally, going to the movies during the summer is just something that has been happening forever, I would say. And I use forever as a loose term. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as you were alluding to earlier about your own birthday and whatnot, and it being also the time of the year where most kids are out of school.
Yes.
So it's it's a fun time. Everybody's going on vacations, going to the pool, going whatever, and it's the time of the year most of the movie industry tries to put their tentpole movies in. Yeah,
you wouldn't be surprised how many articles I looked at that to get some historical context. All of them referenced hot summer days and escaping that heat by going into an air-conditioned movie theater. Yeah. That was the way to beat the heat back in the day because it's not like today where, some houses have air conditioning or central air conditioning or, there's things that kids can do during the summer. Nowadays, kids, lives are for the most part, it really depends on situation. I mean, their lives are structured, not like in the 50s, 60s, 70s where summertime kids would just run around by themselves unsupervised and whatnot. Nowadays it's mostly parents are more involved and things like that, and that's a whole cultural difference thing about just the generation gaps and whatnot. But something that has stayed consistent is going to the movies. I know Steven and I grew up going to the movies with our parents or friends or whatnot, and it was just something we did. You know what I mean? We never questioned it. We loved it. Heck, we love it now.
No.
Else we wouldn't be talking about it.
It's ingrained in us. Yeah,
it was we were brainwashed when we were kids to love these movies.
To be honest, I don't think I've been to the movie theater the last couple weeks, and it's starting to get to me.
Oh, really?
I'm starting to feel
you've been busy
it.
with life stuff.
Yeah, it's keeping me from the movie theater, and I don't like it.
Yeah, you know me. I'm like, I like to go, but like my patience with movie going is waning, and it's the people. You know, the one thing that also hasn't changed over time is the crowds of people and their habits or lack of habits. You know what I mean? Like
their ignorance.
Lack of
awareness
and just like all that kind of stuff. But that's a different thing. That's a different thing. That's
yeah, we've yeah. I don't.
That's a different.
I don't want to get angry right now.
Yeah, I don't want to get angry at people. And so, but moving on from there, Star Wars was the biggest one. I know everyone says, oh, because everyone seems to talk about Star Wars, like, oh, Star Wars this, Star Wars that, you know. But I can't impress this upon people enough. Star Wars not only from an entertainment perspective changed things, but from a cultural standpoint and the way people relate to movies changed things forever. There's nothing quite like that. The fervor, the cultural fervor around that was like nothing else. And of course, Hollywood paid attention to that greatly, and that changed the way they made movies after that. And it changed the way they structured, when to release movies, how to release movies, and, what types of movies that people want to see. Keep in mind, in the 70s, we didn't have the technology that we have now. They didn't have the technology that they had 10 years after that. So CGI wasn't really a big thing. A lot of things were done with practical effects, with model effects. There was some special effects, but rudimentary stuff. Like if you watch some old stuff that tries to use special effects in the 70s, it doesn't look very great because it's very basic. They don't know what they're doing. But Star Wars was able to kind of bridge that gap to the point where you didn't see the bad special effects. You can watch those movies today and they still hold up. So it's kind of a watershed moment from a production standpoint, but from a cultural standpoint as well. The fandom, there were fans of things before that. There were Comic Cons, there were things like that. But what happened is that it wasn't as high. It wasn't a cross multimedia platform that we have now. Back then they had the marketing wasn't like it was with Star Wars, where you had toys, you had T-shirts, you had lunchboxes, you had just everything from everywhere just to sell, to pump this movie up, and in doing so, making it so popular by seeing those things in stores and all that kind of stuff, people would go to the movies to see it. Even people who weren't even interested in science fiction or weren't even interested in movies, they would just go there because, hey, that's what everybody's talking about. So everybody would just go there. And it only, kind of moved on from there. That's when you get to the modern day franchise buildings. I think really starts from there. And it's not like we didn't have franchises before then, because we did. But now Hollywood was really paying attention to making franchises. And this is yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, money-wise, one of the things that's interesting about how blockbusters are put together, franchises are put together compared to back then. One thing that was brought up on a podcast I was listening to was that they were talking about the Planet of the Apes movies.
Right.
And how, funny enough, back then, as they did sequels, they actually started to make the sequels cheaper instead of making them more expensive, which is the backwards way of how they do movies today.
Oh, yeah. It's the back. Yeah, it's very much backwards.
Yeah, they used to care about trying to minimize the budget, and now they don't give a shit. Let's throw $500 million at this one movie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And money wasn't the way it is now. You have to keep, the economics of the situation, apparent, because the way money was valued back then is different the way it's valued now. Like nowadays, $500 million is different today than it was back in the day. Like, it's all an economics thing, but that's all you have to know is that money is valued in different years. That's just economics. But yeah, that's the way they would do things, and it doesn't work that way anymore. That's why, like, past that Star Wars point, past 77, you get more money thrown into things, but you also get money thrown into things that aren't good, but you hope they're gonna be good. You know what I mean? Like chances being taken. I mean, a lot. This is when the '80s hits in. The '80s is known for, kind of weird cultural things, in my opinion. The music is different. The clothing is unlike anything you've seen in any other decade, and the movies are also unlike anything you've seen in any other decade. Because I think there were just so many more risks taken and so many more chances taken because, like, they were just trying things out. And that's kind of cool from a certain perspective. Yeah. But looking back at it, some movies, they're trying to capture the same thing that successful movies would have, but they're not successful at it. And you get movies that are more like, cult hits. You know what I mean? Something like Flash Gordon is a cult hit. You know what I mean? Coincidentally, Flash Gordon is one of the inspirations for Star Wars. That's something that George Lucas, he would watch those old serials as a kid, and he would get inspired by them. And then when they went to make the Flash Gordon movie, it's it is what it is. It's not great, and that's just kind of interesting how there's a lot of gambling being taken back then. But during that time, you also have some of the most well-known franchises ever. Some franchises that are still being watched, talked about, still being made sequels today. It's kind of crazy. And this is kind of the portion of the Cinema Discovery Project where we're not really discovering things that people don't know about. This is probably one of our more mainstream episodes of the franchises that everybody knows about. So we already touched on Jaws with Spielberg. We touched on Star Wars, but of course Star Wars had its sequels. 1980 was Empire Strikes Back. 1983, Return of the Jedi. And of course, those movies were the biggest movies of those summer seasons. And you also had other franchises pop up in there. Indiana Jones. I'm pretty sure a lot of people know Indiana Jones. Coincidentally, also done by Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm was really, pumping out some good stuff back then. But what is interesting is I found an article that only goes from 75 to 2017, where there's a list of the biggest summer movies of each year, and it's really interesting. And I kind of want to go through it kind of as a guide over the years because it fascinates me, like, what was big back then and what is still, is this movie still remembered now? And actually this whole list, they pretty much all are. But the first, of course, is Jaws, then Star Wars in 77. But the one in 76, which is very interesting to me, is The Omen. It was apparently the biggest movie for the summer of 76.
Man, a horror movie was the biggest movie of the year.
That's kind of crazy to me because it also shows that the summer blockbuster doesn't typically have one specific genre that it caters to. Granted, most of these movies will be sci-fi, action, things like that.
Well, the other thing you got to take into account in this case is that the competition's not nearly as high. They didn't have there's not 20 big budget movies that come out in one year. It's maybe 2 or 3 maybe at that time.
Yeah,
it's something that. And in the case of The Omen, it's a small movie. It just hit on quick,
But it's also, you have to keep in mind, not culturally, but just what the audience is like back then versus what they are now. They're not the same. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If The Omen came out today, in our current movie climate society, it would probably be passed over. Not passed over, but kind of like one of these horror movies that you see come out every so often that people go see it, makes a little bit of money, and then we just move on to something else. Kind of like how most Blumhouse films kind of really work, to a certain extent. But anywho, so you have The Omen, Star Wars, and then this is very interesting to me. Talk about a different genre you don't hear much of today when it comes to big summer blockbusters. We're talking Grease in 1978.
It doesn't surprise me,
No,
honestly.
it doesn't surprise me.
But I don't care for the movies.
I grew up watching the movie. Where I grew up watching it several times, so I'm well acquainted with it, and I can still understand the cultural impact it has today. People are still watching this movie. They're still performing this on stage in some places. It's a movie that is more culturally interesting to me than I think it's a great movie. But yeah, a lot of people still love it, and yet again, I think it's a generational thing where like someone has passed it on to the next one and the next one. But yeah, you don't really see musicals during the summer blockbuster season anymore. They actually keep those more for Oscar season, which is very interesting to me. If you think about what has come out over the last couple of years, La La Land, The Greatest Showman, even something like A Star Is Born that has musical elements to it, those are where those movies lie. And what is very interesting is that the year-long movie year, that's terrible terminology, is broken up into seasons. But moving on. So the next one here from 79 is the Amityville Horror. Yet again, another horror movie.
Another horror movie, yeah.
Another horror movie. It's kind of
it was dark times in the 70s.
I guess it's kind of, well, I mean, we did our horror episode, and if you remember, the 70s is when horror movies also had a change. This is where you started getting the slashers, and you started getting some really good horror films that have really stood the cultural test of time. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, things like that.
Also in reality, in the real world, there was a lot of horrific things going on that inspired movies, and I think caught the focus of the public wanting to see some of that in their entertainment. Whether it's I think the Manson stuff. Well, the Manson stuff had happened at the end of the 60s,
right?
And then the stuff maybe like the Zodiac Killer, I think, was during that time. So a lot of actual cultural. Serial killers were starting to come up in that time, and and I think obviously the Amityville Horror Story is based on true events.
It is.
It
is. But of course, the next one for 1980 is Empire Strikes Back. We all know about Empire Strikes Back. 81 was Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones. We all know that. And the next one is something that is near and dear to Steven's heart.
E.T.
That is E.T. He even said it. Man, he's got these years down pat. And of course, the following year, 83, was Return of the Jedi. And then we get all these movies are stuff people know. 84, Ghostbusters. 85, Back to the Future. Ghostbusters, they're making a movie, another one, a sequel. Or a third film in that franchise. It's very interesting how you look at these movies and you're like, people love these movies so much, and Hollywood wants to still make money on them, that they're trying to bring them back again to make more money on them.
That can definitely get into our discussion of the modern how the modern blockbuster is.
Oh yeah, we're going to touch on the modern blockbuster because it's changed over the. It's not. Let's just say it's not strictly limited to the 3-month, June, July, August, or in most cases May, June, July, and August. It's the 4 months, but it's spread out now. But of course, Back to the Future, which we don't. They always talk about doing another one or doing something with it. But anywho, that's neither here nor there. But 1986, Top Gun. Isn't there going to be a Top Gun movie coming out next year? I think there is.
It's called Maverick.
It's called Maverick. And this is interesting. Another sequel here, and this is for 87, is Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Interesting.
Yeah, they were supposed to do something with Beverly Hills Cop.
They were supposed to do a show.
They were going to do a TV show where I think they were going to get Eddie Murphy back to play.
He was going to be. He was like the police. He was playing the police chief, and his son was the main focus.
Yeah, and it for some reason it didn't get greenlit for some reason.
Well, I mean, at that time, wasn't the second one directed by what's his name that did Superman?
Richard Donner.
Richard Donner. Yeah, he did the second one.
I think you may be right.
And then Eddie Murphy, of course, in the 80s was
he was
the
a
biggest
phenomenon in and of himself. Yeah, Beverly Hills Cop 2, which came out in 87, was directed by Tony Scott.
Okay, the first one was directed by Donner, I think, or maybe that was Martin Brest.
Martin Brest. A man's career died with Geely. Great, good, solid director, and that was Martin Brest. You are correct. Good pull on that one. Very good pull. On
maybe the third one. Maybe I'm just thinking of Lethal Weapon, and I keep. Well,
Lethal Weapon. I know Richard Donner did all of them. I know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know that.
But anywho, going back to the list, 1989. No, 1988. Sorry. Robert Zemeckis is back again with Roger Rabbit, a movie I watched when I was a child, perhaps too young. That climax kind of effed me up with Christopher Lloyd. But 1989 here is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Interesting that Temple of Doom wasn't the hottest movie when it came out. Interesting. And this movie, this is the one that kind of surprised me the most, was 1990. And this was the movie Ghost. You know the movie I'm talking about, Ghost?
Yeah. Patrick Swayze, man.
Yeah,
Patrick Swayze. It doesn't surprise me. He's so sexy. I mean, I mean.
Well, that is very true.
Well, that and the movie was nominated for Best Picture. So
it won, I think, I want to say it won a screenplay award.
Yeah, and then Whoopi Goldberg won the Best Supporting Actress, I think.
Yes, she did. She won and won for Best Original Screenplay. Yes. Or it says Best Writing Screenplay written directly for the screen.
Best Pottery Love Scene.
It was also nominated for Best Picture. I don't know if you said that. But yeah,
I said that. That was the first thing I said.
Oh, it was?
It's the first thing I said. Yeah. Come on. Are you actually listening to me when I speak?
Rusty.
I'm just kidding.
Too much birthday celebration.
Too much birthday cake.
Yeah, too much birthday cake. And of course, it also starred Demi Moore as well.
Yes.
But that's just interesting because that's a drama, romance. That's not something you typically see making lots and lots of money. But yet again, 1990, different time. And of course, 91 was Terminator 2, another kind of franchise-changing film, or I would say genre-changing film, that's more appropriate. But that's a franchise they don't know what to do with, and they keep trying to self-murder itself. It's I don't know. They're still trying to make a Terminator movie now, and it's one movie coming out this year. Yes, it's coming out this year.
November.
It is 2019, and Terminator 2 came out in 1991. So you can see how Hollywood just holding on to that old money, trying to get more out of it. And of course, 1992 is Batman Returns, Steven's favorite Batman movie.
No, it's not. It's down on my list. It's not the worst, but it's not my favorite.
I brought that up because I know it's not one of your favorites.
Yeah, I know. You think you're funny, Andrew.
But it's Tim Burton dialed up to 11. This movie is Batman gothic to the extreme. And it's Tim Burton unleashed. That's how I like to describe it. It's a weird movie. I saw it. It was one of the first movies I saw in theaters when I was 5 years old. It's not something I don't know many 5-year-olds should see, but I did. Speaking of a movie I saw in the theater, and now we're getting to the 90s, which I think is a lot of movies that Steven and I saw when we were kids.
Okay, I'm going to guess.
Oh,
which year is it?
Go.
93. Okay. Was it... now, I was going to say Silence of the Lambs, but that's not it.
Nope.
Damn. Never mind. Go ahead. Keep talking.
It is a small indie film. Don't know if you've ever heard of it. It didn't really do well, and that would be Jurassic Park.
Oh, man. I would have never guessed that one.
I know. I never in a million years would I have guessed that. Man. It only grossed $914 million worldwide in its initial release.
That's terrible.
Damn. But yeah, speaking of a franchise that they're still pumping out movies for, Jurassic Park. Yeah. It's yet again, that trend keeps happening. But the next movie is a movie that they haven't made a sequel to, and that is Forrest Gump in 1994. Very interesting how that was the big movie of the summer back in 94. I'd have to go back and actually see what else came out that summer. But But I know that this movie was a huge hit when it came out. I don't know how.
I don't know about summertime, but we know that some of the biggest movies were Pulp Fiction and
Shawshank,
Shawshank and what Quiz Show I think came out that year.
I think it was.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
But anywho,
yeah.
But I'll move on to that.
Also, I'm sorry. Also, we know Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber were all in the same year of that year.
Interesting.
It was a big year. Yeah, it was a big year for Jim Carrey. So
that is a big year for Jim Carrey. Damn.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jim Carrey, what a segue. 95 is a little.
You're welcome.
Is a little movie I like to call Batman Forever. And I was there back in 95. I'll never forget
Batman?
it. I was there.
Batman, you say, coming for you. That's my impression of Jim Carrey from Batman Forever.
Pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm.
We all know this movie because it is the one that stars Val Kilmer as Bruce Wayne / Batman. An underrated Bruce Wayne / Batman, in my opinion.
Yes.
He was coming off, Val Kilmer was the man back in the day. Back in the late 80s and the 90s, he was the man. And his career's kind of fallen off a cliff in the last few years.
He became Fat Kilmer, and then
he lost all the weight. I know he recently...
he had cancer.
I recently had throat cancer, which he wouldn't say he did. I don't know. But anywho, he's still with us, but not looking well health-wise. But back in the day, he was the man back in the 90s.
He was good.
And this was, of course, the first Joel Schumacher film. And we all know how this was just us dipping our toe into the Joel Schumacher Batman, and then it kind of fell off the cliff after that. But moving on to a movie that has actually stood the test of time, and this is a movie I saw in theaters. I know I did, and that is Independence Day in 1996. The Will Smith vehicle that launched his career. Welcome to Earth. And this movie launched him into the stratosphere. He had already been well known rapping, being a musician. Of course, he had his TV series, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But movie career wise, this movie launched him. It launched him pretty far. And speaking of launching him pretty far, in the following year, he had another big hit movie, and that would be Men in Black. And Men in Black literally just had a new movie come out. Yeah. Oh, and back in the day, for some reason, like every Will Smith movie would have him doing like the main song on the soundtrack.
Yeah,
Men in Black.
Because then he did Wild Wild West.
He did
Wild Wild West.
He didn't do one for Independence Day though.
No, he didn't.
No,
not that I know of.
No, but coincidentally, Men in Black just had a new movie come out, and it crashed and burned at the box office, and that would be a box office bomb, if you will, to bring that back up. But yeah, I remember when that movie came out. I went and saw it. Everybody went and saw it. The next year, we have a movie some people don't like, some people do like, some people think it's a guilty pleasure, and that is Armageddon. 1998.
Amazing. It's an amazing film.
I saw this in theaters, and it was a whole bunch of fun. And I'll never forget this, because when I saw it in theater, the fire alarm went off, and we had to evacuate the building, and it was during the scene when they were like slingshotting, like they were trying to land on the asteroid, and it was the scene where they're like all the debris is hitting them, and like one of their spacecrafts crashed or whatnot. But it was right during that sequence that the screen went off, and then the lights came on. They were like, over the intercom, please exit, blah blah blah. We had to exit the emergency exit. And anywho, we got to go back in to finish the movie, but I remember that. That was the first and only time that's ever happened to me.
For a second, you thought reality and the movie crossed paths.
Also, I think that was the same year that the Rugrats movie came out, because when the screen changed, when it went to black, an ad for the Rugrats movie came on. I think it is. I may be forgetting this. Keep in mind, this was 21 years ago, and I was 11 at the time, around then. But the next year, speaking of a life-changing moment in all of our lives, 1999 gives us
The Matrix.
You would think so, Stephen. You would think so. It's a little film I like to call Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
This movie was a phenomena. It was unlike anything I had experienced in my young life at the time. I didn't know what Star Wars fever was because I wasn't alive back in, in the early 80s and, of course, when the first movie came out. But, man, I remember people going bonkers for this movie in anticipation for it to come out. We've heard all these stories from people who waited outside for, like, days in line to see this movie. People who saw it, like, 4, 5, 6 times or whatever. I saw it... I think I saw it 3 times. I think I saw it twice. Maybe not 3 times. No, I saw it twice. I think I saw each of them twice.
Well, yeah, I think right around the same times too, didn't they re-release the originals in the special editions?
Yeah, they did. The recuts back in the late 90s in anticipation for episode 1. They re-put them in theaters and they added new special effects. They added some changes here and there, and that's where people's love affair with George Lucas was starting to erode. And then episode 1 came out, and the old school Star Wars fans were like, "Uh-oh, what is this? What is this Jar Jar Binks character stepping in poop?"
Lisa,
literally stepping in poop in the movie.
Yippee!
Oh boy. But anyway, we could talk about that forever. But
we don't need to talk about that anymore.
Let's move to the next year, which is a franchise.
Gladiator? Is it Gladiator?
Oh, you don't think so? No, sir.
No.
I'll say this. Gladiator is getting a sequel, so I guess it's a franchise now? Who knows? But it is a movie called Mission Impossible 2, directed by John Woo.
The worst Mission Impossible movie.
It is the worst Mission Impossible movie. I don't think it's as bad as some say it is, because I've seen it a few times. And recently I've seen it. It's not as bad, but yeah, it's still... If I had to rank them, that one's at the bottom. It really is. And I just think because of John Woo's style really didn't lend itself well to the movie in certain spots. But I'll say this, though. The Mission Impossible franchise is still going very, very strong. It's actually gotten better over time, which doesn't happen with a lot of franchises at all. It really doesn't. The next one we have is 2001, and this is where we get an interesting kind of 4-year block here, and where 3 out of the 4 films are animated films. And the first one here is Shrek.
Yep, I can see that.
Yeah, 2001 was Shrek.
I saw that one in theaters.
I didn't see Shrek in theaters. I saw it later on DVD.
You should say the full title. Shrek, a.k.a. Smash Mouth.
Hey, now you're an all-star.
Because they just played a bunch of Smash Mouth songs.
Yeah, they did. Did they do All-Star? Did they do...
They did All-Star. I think in the second movie they did another one. Like, no.
Didn't they do Life is a Highway?
Well, that's that's somebody else.
I don't even know.
That's somebody else. But then in one of Smash Mouth, their music was in everything. Right. Like in basketball, they did "Why Can't We Be Friends?" It's in everything. But that's good enough subject. Shrek, yes, I can see why it was a phenomenon. You also had Eddie Murphy in there.
Oh yeah.
Mike Myers had just gotten off of doing, I think, his last Austin Powers movie, maybe. Or it was around that time?
He had it done... he had not done Goldmember yet.
Okay.
He's coming off of Spy Who Shagged Me in 99.
Yeah.
And... Yeah, so Mike Myers is still in his prime, I guess? Thing is, he never really, was out of his prime. He just kind of stopped doing things.
He just did Love Guru and decided to...
Oh, yeah, that kind of, yeah. But anyway, moving on to the next one, and this is the live-action film I'm talking about, and that's Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. This movie changed everything. When we're talking about, and we talked about comic book movies earlier, this movie plus X-Men that came out in 2000, which I'm actually surprised wasn't the big one. Those 2 movies changed everything. They started a chain reaction that has brought us to modern day where the biggest movies of the summer are the comic book movies. and they're the biggest movies of every single year, money-wise.
Let's not forget about Blade.
Oh, okay? Let's not forget. Yeah, there was Blade in there. Yeah, Blade was back in '98, but nobody went to see that.
Let's not forget Blank Man. Okay.
Oh, okay, Blank Man. Oh,
Dark Man.
Oh, don't forget about The Phantom with Billy Zane.
Yeah, I love that. Let's not forget about them yeah. Spawn.
Spawn is another one, which that movie does not hold up. I've rewatched it recently.
It's bad.
Let's hope they get that new one out sooner rather than later, because that's a character that I think would lend itself very well to modern day movies with modern day technology. But yeah, Spider-Man was a big one. Spider-Man is one of the most popular characters of all time in comics.
Sam Raimi did a fantastic job of.
He really did.
With what he had.
It's not the last time we're going to see Sam Raimi on this list. The next one is from 2003, and that is Finding Nemo.
That's a good one.
Which is, that's a great movie. And then the following, we don't have anything to discuss. It's Finding Nemo. If you haven't seen that movie, it's fantastic. The next one is Shrek 2 from 2004.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is. I remember seeing that in
more kitties are going to the theaters.
Yeah, it's a really weird trend. And it's not Disney. Disney dominates the box office now when it comes to animated movies. But back in the early 2000s, apparently it was DreamWorks. And apparently it was. Of course, and then 2000. Yeah, so that was 2002. No, I was saying, yeah. But go on. What were you gonna say?
Well, Nemo's. Well, it was Pixar. Disney hadn't bought Pixar yet, but
right.
Yeah.
And next, so no, that was 2004. This is 2005, which is Revenge of the Sith.
It wasn't Crash?
No, Christ, no. I'm actually really surprised that. I have to run the numbers. Maybe I'll look at the numbers later. But that Star Wars Episode 2 wasn't the biggest movie of 2002.
I guess that first movie just really, did it.
It did, yeah. Well, yes, that's kind of. I'll run the numbers later, but that's interesting that Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was the biggest movie that summer.
I mean, Spider-Man 2 is awesome.
Yeah, Spider-Man 2 is also really good. What's interesting, not on this list, but after Revenge of the Sith, we all know it was the last of the prequel franchise. That's why a lot of people went to see it. Honestly, it's the best of the prequel movies, if you want my honest opinion.
Probably, yeah.
I'll be honest, I've seen a lot of people rank their Star Wars movies, and Revenge of the Sith is high up there for a lot of them. For a lot of fans. A little surprising to me. But the next year we have Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, 2006. And this is the second movie. The second one.
Oh, no, wait, that's the second one.
Yeah, the first one was
World's End's the third one.
Yeah, the first one was Curse of the Black Pearl, then Dead Man's Chest, then you said, what did you say? End of the World?
The World's End, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And then we had...
At World's End.
And there was a fourth one, and then there was a
fifth one.
I stopped counting.
Who cares?
Anywho, but 2007, here we are. Spider-Man 3, back with Sam Raimi. I remember when this movie came out, and people went to see this in droves. And this movie was breaking, box office records. And it's not the best of these Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. But I guess people just really wanted to see it. But the hype train around it, I think, really helped. We were gonna finally see Venom.
Well, it was Venom, yeah. It was the Venom thing, yeah.
And he's only in the movie for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, because every time they came on the screen, Topher Grace's face just popped up, and they'd take the mask off and be like, "It's me, Topher Grace."
Yeah, he's only in the third act of the movie, and. It's not that great.
It's rough.
But I kind of hate that we never got a fourth one. But that's something for a different time. And this is and the next movie is another film that, for me, changed the genre, changed the summer movies, immensely, and that is The Dark Knight, 2008.
Oh yeah.
I saw this movie. I'm still reeling from seeing this movie 11 years later. It's still sitting with me. That this movie exists. And I know there's gonna be a lot of people out there saying, "Oh, you're a Nolan fanboy. Oh, it's not as good as you think it is." All this kind of stuff. But man, in context of the time, 2008, there was never ever a movie like this within the genre, where it was both a movie, like high quality movie when it comes to screenplay writing, when it comes to themes, when it comes to all of these things, and also be action and thrilling and have a pace to it, and the acting being so fantastic, more specifically by Heath Ledger as the Joker, a version of the Joker we had never seen before, and it was a version of a movie within the genre we've never seen before, and we kind of haven't really seen it since, in my opinion. And it was just something that was unbelievable. And I know people talk about it in droves. And I know, Steven, I know you like it as well.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, but anyway, we'll move on, because that movie made $1 billion. And the next film is a film I sadly waited to see, because I went to a showing, and they were sold out. So I was like, oh, I'll wait for the next one, which was like an hour and a half or 2 hours after that. It was one of those ones where I had to wait in line to get in, and then they opened the doors and people ran into the theater to get seats, and like people got like pushed and trampled and all that kind of stuff. Not trampled, but you know what I mean. And that is Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Oh, gross. Steven, I have a lot of dark things in my past. This may be one of the darkest, where I waited to see this movie. And let's just say it's not the best one. It's not the best one.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to do, because they're all pretty bad.
Yeah, but it also shows. I mean, for the movies that we've listed so far, they're all quality movies for the most part. I don't think we've had some duds. Phantom Menace being what it is, whatever. That's subjective, but Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen is not good. And I mean, contextually around that time, the 2009 movies were all plagued because of the writer's strike from 2007 to 2008, when all of those movies were being made. A lot of those screenplays were not finished. A lot of those movies started to go into principal photography and production without screenplays and without rewrites that were desperately needed or things like that. And those movies definitely showed, because that's the year when I think you got James Bond, Quantum of Solace, not a good movie. You know what I mean? That's the year, I think, where you got, what was that the year you got, was it the second Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, I think? But that was also the year you got Star Trek, the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. But what is interesting is I found out about the J.J. Abrams Star Trek is that I think the writers, I forgot who wrote the screenplay for that movie, I could look it up, but I think
Alex Kurtzman.
I think so, but they were also
Kurtzman.
They were also producers, so they could be on set while the movie was being made, so they could do the writing that needed to be done. And they didn't, they could, because if you were a writer, you were on strike, you couldn't be on set, you couldn't do anything because you're on strike, can't cross that picket line. That's how unions go and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that movie didn't suffer from that, and I'm actually surprised that movie wasn't the big one of the summer, because it's a much better movie than Star Trek: Revenge of the Fallen. It really is. Yeah. I mean, that movie, directly below enemy scrotum. I mean, that was a line that John Turturro had to say. I mean, come on now. Yeah, that was Roberto Orci, Alex Kurtzman. Those were the writers on that. But okay, moving on past that turd. Let's move on to a great movie.
There are many other turds to come, I'm sure.
Actually, I don't think so. No, we're gonna get into some good stuff here, some modern day stuff.
Well, we got let's pick up the pace. We gotta
picking it up.
Gotta get through the
Toy Story 3, which we all love.
That's a good one.
Which we all love. The following year, which I believe was 2011, was Harry Potter: Deathly Hallows Part 2. Yet again, capping the franchise. 2012, The Avengers.
That makes sense.
Life-changing movie, genre-changing movie. The following year, Iron Man 3. A lot of people don't like that movie. That movie made $1.2 billion at the box office. Yeah. That movie killed. And
coming off the Avengers, that helps too.
Yeah,
but,
we're getting into the modern days now, and you can see the comic book genre just taking over. And then the following year, 2014, Guardians of the Galaxy. No one saw that coming.
Nope.
And then you got Old Reliable here in 2015 with Jurassic World, which $1.6 billion. Yet again, going back to that well of getting past stuff. Finding Dory was the following year. I'm actually really surprised that was the biggest one in 2016.
Yeah, I know.
I can't even remember that 2016 year. But anywho, moving past that, 2017 is Wonder Woman. And then 2018, they don't have on this list, but I think we all know what it is. Infinity War? And then, of course, this year, even though it is June, we can all confidently say Endgame is the number one at the box
Probably
office.
gonna win that. Yeah.
What's it at now? Like 2.4 billion worldwide, or whatever it is.
It's like 40 million away from the Avatar goal.
Yeah, it's about to break the all-time record, perhaps. But yeah, so that's kind of each year in the spotlight, and you can see the trend is changing. And this brings us to modern day blockbusters. The budgets are extremely high now. They're much higher than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. The time of year that these movies come out is no longer strictly the summer, as Steven alluded to earlier.
Yeah.
They are now...
Yeah, it stretches out to March. I mean, March...
I would even say February now. I would even say February.
I mean, like Deadpool, Deadpool lands in February. I mean,
Deadpool, Black Panther was in February. I mean, it's just like there's so many movies being produced with large budgets that you have to fit them in somewhere. And
but I do think that there's a cutoff at the end that usually cuts off in August. Like
I think
there are some special cases, but I think it came out in September, didn't it?
That feels like a fall movie to me.
Yeah, I guess. But I think it's technically still summertime.
Well, yes,
when it comes out.
Yeah, seasonally, yes. Technically, the fall I don't think has quite started yet.
But if you're saying it ends, near August, then sure. But yeah, there's some exceptions. But like I think Guardians was an August movie.
It was.
Yeah.
And those are like late August are considered the dog days of summer, where you put. Yeah. Those are where you put the movies that you're not quite sure about, and movies that you know will not be able to compete at the peak of summer, June.
Yeah.
July. Right now. Those are the hotbed month. The hotbed period, I think, is late April to mid-July. I think is the hotbed time. So even through July, we'll go late April all the way to the end of July. That's a good time frame. But I'll say this: there's always a hype every year about the summer movie season, and I don't know if it's just me, Steven. I don't know if you're feeling it too. The hype isn't being remotely fulfilled in any way. At least this year for me. And I don't know if that's just because our tastes are different now that we've gotten older, or we're just looking at different movies more favorably or less favorably. But so far, it's midway through June, and there's not a lot of great big hits out there when it comes to summer blockbusters. But,
I've talked about this.
Go on.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this before. I mean, I just think that specifically Hollywood filmmaking is just bloated.
Yes.
It's just too much. They want to just continue to inundate the public with more and more things, and I'm telling you, it devalues everything. The more you just pump out there and you don't actually care about the quality, the more people are going to not care about what you're putting out. I mean, sure, there'll be people that follow and like certain things, but your returns overall are not going to last. Most things are franchise things. You're not creating any original content. You're just building off of things that have already made money, and eventually things depreciate. They're not going to make the money like they used to. I mean,
oh right, yeah. Also, I think it's becoming too focused. Not focused, but like all of the money is going into one place as opposed to being spread out amongst all these movies. You know what I mean? Like for example, Endgame has made billions of dollars, but like some of the other summer movies aren't going to make anywhere close to that, and they're not supposed to. But I mean, like people, there's like this whole idea of there's a superhero fatigue or a summer blockbuster fatigue or something like that. I don't think that that's necessarily a thing. I think people's there's a money fatigue where people are choosing very specifically which movies they want to see and which movies they can wait to see later on, because as we all know, these movies are going to end up on Blu-ray, DVD, and streaming just a few months down the line, and they're not necessarily must-see movies now. And it's not that, and also the way in which we view movies has changed dramatically. We've talked about it so many times that people would rather stay home to watch a movie as opposed to go out and spending, $10, $12, $15 on a ticket, buying popcorn and soda, which is another $10, $12. You know what I mean? They would rather stay home to do that so they could just wait. Or they could just, and since there are so many movies, they could just stay home and watch something else. And they don't have to go out and see that summer blockbuster, because they can be just as entertained at home by watching something else. It's a whole mindset thing that I think Hollywood's going to have to look at soon and look at someday. Right now, they're doing all right with money-wise, but I think they're going to reach that point where they're going to start seeing that money decrease, or they're going to start seeing just, people's money's going to go towards something more specific than more spread out. And a lot of movies are going to take big financial hits because of that. They're going to have to adjust the way they spend their money, too. I mean, Hollywood, specifically.
It's tough, though, because, it's, once you reach a certain peak when it comes to making money, you expect to continue to expand. That's how capitalism is.
Oh, yeah.
They want to keep making more and more money every year. And, the more jobs you give out, the more, there's more expectation there to keep them jobs, of course. So you're going to have to keep making more money. And that's why I'm saying it's bloated. I'm not saying I don't want people to have the opportunities to be able to work in the film industry, but there needs to come a point where it's like, you're creating too many jobs. You're it's too much going on here, and it's hurting you. It's really making us forget that cinema is also an art and not just a means of entertainment and money and a part of our economy.
That's unfortunately been a byproduct of the summer blockbuster, where as opposed to where it started out originally, where it was more of doing fresh, new, unique films like Jaws, like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, all those foundational films we mentioned, and now it's become more processed, more streamlined, more assembly line. More generic.
Everything's
you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, everything's based on strategy.
Yeah.
What they think people want to see, and that's the only thing that they'll put money towards.
Right.
Is
it's
what they
like,
think will sell.
Yeah, and it's not. I don't put it at the fault of the filmmakers or the production team or the actors or any of those people. Those people are, this is their job, this is their careers, this is their life, this is something they chose to do, most of them at least, I hope so. And so I'm not faulting them, it's the system that they're in is a problem, you know what I mean? It's the system that is unfortunately just, that they have to fall in line with, because there is no alternative to the Hollywood system unless you want to go into the indie realm, which things are a lot more up in the air when it comes to stability with people's careers and things like that. You may get more artistic value, you may get more experimental, more freedom down there, but the chances you take about making a consistent living are big. You know what I mean? How many indie movies just don't even get mainstream distribution? And then
I was going to say, the distribution's the main thing, is getting people to see it.
And then there are those that get mainstream distribution and they just fail because the audience members are not interested in their product. A recent example, Booksmart, the film by Olivia Wilde. Yeah. It's a great indie coming of age film that's done on a smaller budget that had a wide release, and it didn't do well at all. It just did not do well. I'm pretty sure it made enough back to be profitable, at least for its budget, but it's not a big hit. What did it make? Like in its first week, it made less than 10 million. I think it made like 7 million opening weekend or something like that. It was over, and I'm pretty sure it was released in over 2,000 theaters. Yet again, you have, and then something like that will make the bigger studios be less hesitant to want to make those movies, to want to distribute those movies, because they don't see the financial gain in it. You know what I mean? And that's the whole Hollywood system that we've talked about a few times on this. But that's kind of our whole episode right now. We're past the hour mark, which is a good place. I mean, everyone, I think, culturally right now has grown up with the summer blockbuster season, whether you're our age or younger, and it's just going to continue on going forward. I mean, it's not going to stop anytime soon, and it's an interesting kind of look at, how culture and movies meshed into one another to create something new and unique, going from the 70s up until now. That's the way, at least that's the way I view it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting what we value in film. I kind of just wish we could get back to actually viewing movies more than just entertainment. That's my biggest thing. I mean, I understand the value of having sure, I go to the movies wanting to be entertained too. It's one of the main things, but I just don't like how film has become so economically based in its how it's shown to the public, because
I think it creates a sense of stagnancy within the medium that I don't think has taken full hold yet, but it could soon rather than later.
Yeah.
A stagnancy where people are just going to be like, oh, I've seen this already, or I don't have to see this now, or something like that, where just people will just be open to more options in other places and things like that. But that's a whole other story for a different time.
Yeah.
So, Steven, let's wrap this up here. Take me home.
Yeah. I will take you home on this. Get back in the machine, Cinema Discovery machine.
Yeah.
Where can we find you, Andrew, on the internets?
You can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Capzilla Productions.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can also find me posting all the movie goodies that I get on our Instagram, Cinema Discovery Project. You can find the audio for this podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcast, apparently no longer iTunes because that's going to get shut down. But that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.